Right, it's the Jews. The Jews who always know things, think they know, right? Yeah. All right. Another funny evening in Yevamos ahead of us tonight.
What?
Another fun evening. Fun. We are. Everybody's right at the top. Mama Rebbe Ksuva. What does Rebbe say about the Ksuva? That's the second line down. Okay. Mama Rebbe Ksuva. What does Rebbe Ksuva? Now Rebbe Lezer said in the Mishnah, which was on Amud Aleph, that the first husband does get the mitzvah that the wife finds, the wife who was, of course, unfortunately married then to somebody else, and the mitzvah that she has in Ma'aseh Yodea, and the handiwork she makes, and he annuls her promises and vows, right? So Mama, so it says Gemara, Mama Elizabeth Ksuva, does he also hold that the wife gets a Ksuva from the first husband? Is there reciprocity? So it says Gemara, yes, Mein Varm Shenaflu Derech Isur, things which come at the time that she's forbidden. In other words, the husband gets her handiwork and her mitzvah, right? So obviously that he's getting when he's still married to her, and he's not supposed to still be married to her. So that's called Derech Isur, while she's forbidden to him, right? Atomer Zakai, you say nevertheless it goes to the husband. Ksuva, the Ksuva Shnafla Derech Heter, her Ksuva, that was promised her years ago, right? Before the whole episode occurred, right? And besides, she gets it when she leaves. So that's wonderful. We want so Koshke should be a Kavachomer that she should get both. She should get that. So actually, the Bavli also says this, but the Yerushalmi is stressing the point that the Ksuva was promised her years ago, and the Bavli stresses the second point I made, which is that the Ksuva she's getting in order to leave. Of course, we want to encourage her leaving, so therefore we should give her a Ksuva. Okay? Says more further, Mistaber Rabbi Lezer Yedi Rabbi Yossi. So it means it makes us assume that Rabbi Lezer will concede to Rabbi Yossi that a Ksuva she gets. Rabbi Yossi will not concede to Rabbi Lezer, meaning he says a Ksuva she gets, but not that the husband gets the mitzvah and handiwork which she produces during the time that she's still married to him. Okay? Because you want to promote a speedy divorce. Says more further, Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Lezer Yodum Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Lezer. Now actually, Shai Torah Eretz Yisrael here, in all honesty, adds the word lo Yodi. He says lo Yodum Rabbi Shimon. But I'm not going to learn like that. I'm going to learn like the Gemara says in front of us. That Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Lezer will concede to Rabbi Shimon that the Rabbi Shimon says that if one of the brother, if the first husband dies and he leaves a couple of wives, and one of the brothers of the first husband does bia or chalitza on this woman, this unfortunate woman who had been married to a second husband as well, so then that exempts all the other wives which the first husband had from Yibum or from Chalitza. Okay? So that's Rabbi Shimon's perspective. So he says it's logical that Yosef Lezer will concede to Rabbi Shimon on this, because now the main thing is that we want this marriage to be rent asunder. Once the marriage is rent asunder, we don't care what happens afterwards. Well, Chalitza and Yibum are after the marriage is rent asunder, not perhaps the way we would have preferred by get, but by death. Big deal. The marriage no longer exists. Once the marriage no longer exists, so we can say that any further ramifications, such as Yibum and Chalitza, may be assumed to be proper ramifications. And therefore, whatever is done with this woman will exempt her co-wives from Yibum and Chalitza. Okay, Rabbi Shimon Le'yodi, Rabbi Yisrael Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon will not concede Rabbi Yisrael Eliezer because he'll say, yes, what I'm saying, that Biur Chalitza, with Yibur Chalitza, with this woman works, that's because it's after the marriage. But the things you're talking, which are still in the course of the marriage, is Mitzia, Ma'aseh Yadayim, or even the concept of giving her ksuva, which emanates from the marriage, that I would not concede that is that she gets it. Hadamras teaches us, Rabbi Shimon, according to Rabbi Shimon, Bia Psula Poteres, that a Bia which is puzzled, meaning, of course, this woman should not be Mesiah Bemes, because she's forbidden to her husband. Nevertheless, since that prohibition is only a rabbinic prohibition, and the Bia is only puzzled the Rabbanon, so it must be that Bia Psula does work in order to exempt the other co-wives from Yibum. Okay? Says the Gemara, period. Actually, first let's put a period there. Now the word goes back to the Mishnah. And the Mishnah says, said, if she got married with the Rishus of Beis Din, she doesn't bring it. She in that case, she doesn't have to bring a carbon because Beis Din is responsible, right? If she got married without the Rishus of Beis Din, then she has to bring a carbon, right? Because Beis Din was not responsible. So it says the Gemara. Actually, it's not. We're not going to that point yet. That's the next point the Gemara is going to go on. The point the Gemara is going at this point is that it said that if there was opinion in the Sefer, which we don't pass on like, that if she married without permission of Beis Din, meaning she had two witnesses, so in that case she can stay married to her first husband. It's only a case where she did not have permission, where she had to get permission of Beis Din to marry, meaning she only had one witness, and therefore she needed permission of Beis Din to marry. In that case, she's lost to both husbands, both the second and the first. So it says more about Batish, that doesn't make any sense. Let me stop her door. Elanisis Bershus Muter should be, if she gets married with the permission of Beis Din, we should sanction her less, then she should be permitted. Shalovish is getting married without permission of Beis Din because she had two witnesses and didn't come to Beis Din, so as soon as she should be forbidden because she didn't go to Beis Din to consult. So Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Shimon's perspective, which said that she's only has to get both two divorces if she had the permission of Beis Din, as opposed to if she didn't have the permission of Beis Din, means because also Beis Din Harayos, it's based on the such that Beis Din made their ruling Kizadon Ish V'Isha, as if somebody rely on their ruling as if they were intentionally committing the Isser of Eshes Ish. So which makes her prohibited both to the second person, the Boel, and to original husband, the Baal. The reason why they did this, of course, the Gemara said way back at the beginning of the parak, is that a woman should be extra special, sure, before relying on one aid and going out and getting remarried. Okay? Right. That's why you need the Ras Basin on one aid. Heisu Rabbi Chagai, Kumi Rabbi Yossi. Now, getting back to the Korbanos. Rabbi Chagai asked in front of Rabbi Yossi, V'yehei came Ba'aroya. Now, there are numerous pshatim.
You skipped 2 lines. Nisa Shalo.
Yeah, sorry. Nisa Shalo B'Rishus. If she got married without permission, meaning she had two witnesses and she didn't have to come on to Beis Din's authority, then there's Kishkogas Ishvisha, then she, according to our mission, she can remain married to the first husband, because then they consider it to be unintentional. It's considered to be unintentional because we don't have to, ensure that she's going to be extra special careful. Why should she be extra special careful? 2 Adam came. It might be they're lying, but we don't need her care. We have the Adam to rely on, right? Now, Rabbi Yochanan said, Leis kam Petura el Chayeves. Yochanan said, regardless of who gave her sanction to remarry or nobody, she always has to bring korban. Doesn't matter. Okay? So ask Gemara.
If she has the 2 witnesses, don't those witnesses have to testify in the Beis Din?
Yeah,
she had to get married. Right. So before the Rav can marry her, he needs to see 2 witnesses declaring.
Yeah, but it's not a function of Beis Din then to pass on that she's mutter. They're just hearing the testimony. It's a rubber stamp. Opposed to where it's one. Right. You don't need. Even to do Drush Chakir, it's not really. It's pro forma. It's opposed to where it's one witness, because then Beis Din is really creating that. Now, it says more, there are a lot of interpretations in the next Gemara till the Mishnah, but I'm going to learn it like Rabbi Yosef Engel, which I found particularly smooth and impressive. He says, Kumi Rabbi Yossi, V'yeken bo doya. Let's say, Yeken bo roya. Let's say that it's talking about how can you say that they poskined that she can go and live with and get remarried? In other words, we said they were based in poskin, she can go and remarried. So then
she doesn't have to bring a korban.
She doesn't have to bring a korban, based on bring a korban. So I can say it's a psak, the way Rabbi Yosef Engel explains it. It's really a question of metzius. Is her husband dead or alive? A psak is when we have a shaila and halacha, but this is not a shaila and halacha. This is a shaila in whether the husband is dead or alive. It's a question not of paskim, a question of determining the fact. Maybe Basin made a mistake in determining the fact. It wasn't a mistake in psak. The mistake in psak is only when there's a halachic issue, not when there's a reality issue. Okay? Says more, no. We're talking about Kshahoru Mutalav Ishasish. The original psak, the one is allowed to rely on one aid, which is a psak of based in, because the Torah says two witnesses, that is a psak. That's not a metzius thing. It's not a question of reality. It's a question of whether one aid is sufficient. That was a psak.
In legal terms, isn't that called causality? Because of the psak of what Basin said, that caused her to get married to someone else.
Oh, but now Rabbi Yosef Engel says, the next question...
Medical malpractice, they talk about that all the time.
He's not a terminology guy. Nunk pro dunk. Anyway, so says so says the Gemara, does your son-in-law know what a nunk pro dunk is? Try to ask him. Okay. So says the Gemara, and again, I'm touching the corner of Yosef Engel, gives a beautiful shot on this one line. He says, the luck here is goofy. That's not, even that wasn't Torah. When based in Paskin, one was allowed to rely on one witness, the way the Gemara says in the Yevamos and in the Bavli is they were Oka Dovrim Min HaTorah. They uprooted the principle of the Torah. And the Gemara that discusses is Kum V'aseh, is it Shei Val Taisa, what right did they have to do it? But that's not a psak. And the way Yosef Engel says, really a takona is not a psak. A psak is when on a specific case I issue a psak. But here they didn't issue a specific case. They uprooted a whole section of the Torah called two witnesses and said one witness suffices. So you can't call it a psak which based on that's bring the korban as opposed to the woman. That's the Gemara's question, right? So it says Gemara, no. Maybe we're talking about where in this specific case, they paskin for this woman, wait 5 years. And then he get remarried. So that's a psak already. Because that's a psak, because it's telling her, for some reason, which Gemara doesn't say, we want you to wait 5 years before you get remarried. Okay? So it says more. That's why there was a having, and it says she's exempt on the korban, because Basin issued an actual psak in this situation. Okay? Now, says Gemara, if that's the case, why does the Mishnah differentiate between a case where she actually was married to somebody else, where Basin being the korban for her, again not according to Rabbi Yochanan, according to the way we learned in the Mishnah before it, and a case where she's mizana, where she has licentious relations, where Basin does not bring the korban for her. What's the difference? If Basin paskin issued a psak, what difference does it make how she ran afoul lamaisa? She was relying on their psak, right? And that's why she was a mizana. So it says more here also a very interesting answer. Now I'm going to learn this like the Mefarshim on the page, even though the Yerushalmi has a very interesting pshat on which he sustains what it says here. But I'm going to change it slightly, just by taking one word. Okay, he said, they say that when Basin allows you, let's say Basin allows you to eat chalev, and you ate chalev and blood, that's not considered to be okay. You're not relying on Basin. Because when you ate the blood, you indicated that it wasn't Basin's psak you were relying on. You're relying on your own logic, right? Because Basin only allowed you chalif. They didn't allow you to eat blood. So therefore, you have to bring a korban actually on both, because it indicates us you're doing it on your own cognizance and not on Basin's cognizance. So the same thing here. They allowed her to get married. They didn't allow her to be Mazana, right? When she does nus, that indicates that she's not relying on Basin's psak. She's relying on her own perspective, and therefore, in that case, she has to bring her own korban. Okay?
Along the same lines, I would just say that her intentions were honorable when she got married. Her intentions were not honorable when she decided to...
Well, that's a similar idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Halacha Gimel. Isha shach ba'al dinasayam. A woman whose husband went to Chutzar. Shach ba'al u'benam dinasayam. Her husband and son went to Chutzar. Uvov amla meis balech. So the first they said to her, your husband died. Para meis b'nech, and then they said, your son died afterwards. So then in that case she's P'tura min ha'yibum, right? Because at the time her husband died, she still had a son. And he said she got married. And they said, whoops, the opposite was true. First your son died, and then your husband died, and therefore you're chayav to be Misa Bemis, right? V'avlad Rishon, v'achron mamzer, states she's got to get divorced. V'avlad Rishon, v'achron mamzer, and the kids are mamzerim, right? Any kid she has, because she should have undergone Yibum, and she didn't. She said she married someone she's not allowed to marry. So any kids from this union are mamzerim. Now, B'nai Moshe is a very important point from the Bavli that we don't pass at this Mishnah. Because the prohibition for somebody else to have relations with a woman who has Zika upon her is only a lie. It's only a stamina negative command. It's not a Chiv Misa. So therefore, this Mishnah is only going to Rabbi Akiva who says mamzer from negative, from Chayav Ilavin, from regular lav. But we pass is only mamzer if there's capital punishment involved. We were not passing like this Mishnah.
Who's the Vilna Rishon here?
Right. Before she became aware that her husband, that the reverse procedure had occurred.
Which one?
Yeah, the Shani is after she became aware. Yeah.
So which was the first one that died? The husband first?
No,
The
that would be
son
okay.
died
The
first.
son died first, and then the husband died. That's why she should have been Misiah Bemis.
Right.
Okay, it says how do you consider these witnesses? Like witnesses on death or like witnesses on divorce? If you're going to say that they're like witnesses of death, Pligad argues out. It should be Bein Arabban and Hachan, Bein Arabban and Taman argues on both sets of rabbis who we're going to see in a minute. If we make them like witnesses on divorce, Pliga, and here it should be Arabban and Taman. They're arguing on the rabbis in Bavel. Okay? So I actually just switch the lines. So what are the rabbis over here in Eretz Yisrael? Rabbi Yochanan, they're Rabbi Yochanan. Tani came also in the Zabraisa. The carbonated takes out the words Tani came because it's not a brisa. It's not a brisa. It's just a statement of Rabbi Yochanan. Shnaim Omri Meis. Two people said your husband died. Shnaim Lo Meis. Two people say your husband did not die. Okay, so we have 2 against 2. Lotina says she shouldn't get married. Vim they say so she does get married. Lotina says she doesn't have to get divorced. She can remain married. Shnaim discussion. 2 people say you're divorced. Shnaim discussion. 2 people say you're not divorced. Lotina say she may not get remarried. Vim they say so if she does get remarried, they say she's got to get divorced. Okay, so Rabbi Yochanan said when 2 on 2 by death, she shouldn't get married. If she gets remarried, she can stay married. By 2 on 2 in divorce, she shouldn't get remarried. If she gets remarried, she's got to get divorced. Second time around, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Says Gemara.
It's almost like a multi, for the first case, it's like a multi-mecher all of a raya. I understand it's not the number.
Yeah, well, we're going to discuss that. Tamar Amar. So that's in Eretz Yisrael. Baba, they said, Lo shania hi misa hi gerushin. Doesn't make a difference whether it's 2 on 2 by death or 2 on 2 by divorce. Lo tina say. She shouldn't get married. Even if he says, Lotte say if she does get married, however, she doesn't have to get divorced. Now, Al-Taitis Rabbanan Tamar, according to the rabbis over there in Bavel, I understand it's consistent. Nichol, he miso, he gerish. Same thing is true by death and by divorce. Right? You shouldn't get remarried. If you get remarried, don't get divorced. According to Rabbi Yochanan, the rabbis in Eretz Yisrael, Ma ben Misa, Ma ben Gerushin. Why? When two on two by death, and she gets remarried, we make her. We don't make her get divorced, but 2 on 2 by divorce. If she gets remarried, we do make her get divorced. So it says more. Rabbi Zira Amar Lo Stam. Rabbi Zira said this statement without attribution. Rabbi Chia said, B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, Amar, he said, Hadas Machas. He said, it's a logic. What's the logic? Be'edei Misa, by Edem on death, Me'achashilu Yavahu Machish. If he comes back by death, so then, he's obviously going to prove, they're obviously going to prove the Edom wrong, right? The guy comes and says, here I am, still alive, right? So therefore she's afraid to get remarried unless she's absolutely sure. That's why it's true she shouldn't marry l'chatchila, but if she does marry, we say mistama, she clarified it beforehand, because she's deathly afraid that the guy will come back from the dead, and therefore she can remain married. However, by Gerushin, it's not the same thing. Because by Gerushin, even if she gets remarried now and then her husband comes and proves that he didn't divorce her husband says he didn't divorce her, husband comes back, so then she says, yeah, but you divorced me. I have no proof, but you divorced me. In other words, the Edom by death will be absolutely contravened by the appearance of the husband. So therefore she's afraid to live under a fiction, to accept the Edom unless they're absolutely correct. But by Gerushin, she can always claim, yeah, when the husband shows up, sure, you're alive, but you divorced me already, and therefore the Edom are not under that degree of potential, a discovery, and therefore there she's more likely to lie. So that's why, in the case where she gets remarried, where it's 2 on 2 by death, she can remain married. In the case where it's 2 on 2 by divorce, she can't remain married. Okay, that's Rabbi Yochanan's svara.
By death, it's not called habeas corpus. You gotta have the body.
Right, it's habeas corpus, right. But habeas livus here, it comes back alive. It says whatever you say, habeas vitalis. Okay, says further. Omar Rabbi Chizkiah said, Rabbana Tamon Kedaitin. Rabbana, the rabbis in Bavel, they're like us. In other words, we like what they say. Kamod Rabbana Tamon Omar. Now, this Rabbana Tamon is elsewhere. It's not really talking about our case over here. It's talking about a case. Actually, it's not Kedaitin like us. It's like themselves. I apologize. The Rabbana and Bavel are consistent. That's what it means to say. How are they consistent? When it went out, it went out with clear-cut testimony. Now this is interesting. This is the case you were referring to before of Hamotzi Mechaver Love Araya. You have 2 on 2. 2 people say that this field belonged to Reuven's father. People say this field belongs to Shimon's father, right? So Reuven gets into the field and he takes hold of it, okay? So if Reuven has hold of the field, so then he gets to keep it, right? Reuven, let me translate the case for Beit Carbonator. Reuven's in a field with the assumption that it's his. And Shimon brings proof that when his father died, Shimon's father, it was in the hands of Shimon's father, right? And therefore we say that it belonged to Shimon's father, right? So we take it out of Reuven and we give it to Shimon. If Reuven then brings 2 Eidim that when Shimon's father died, it was not in the Shimon's father's jurisdiction, so the Rabbanan in Bava hold that since it's 2 on 2, we leave the field by Shimon who's holding on to it in the Safek, despite the fact that originally we should have left it in the hands of Reuven who's holding on to it. Because once it left Reuven's hands, because of whatever testimony he had at the time, then it becomes Shimon's, and we can't take it out of Shimon. Anybody understand what I just said?
Even if Ruvain has Adim?
Even if Reuven has Adim, right? Because it's 2 on 2. In other words, Shimon already extracted it, right?
Okay.
So now Reuven wants it back. And Reuven has testimony, which were he to have produced the testimony originally, would have allowed him to keep the field. But now he's trying to take it back. It doesn't work to take it back. He needs strong evidence because I'm going to right.
Possession is 9/10 of the law.
Right. So possession is 9/10 of the law. So it says more. Since when we took it away from Reuven and gave it to Shimon, right? So we actually had definite witness testimony at that time. So to the Rabbanan Tamon Omrin, it should be instead of the Hacha. So to the rabbis over there saying, Bavel, B'Shosh, and he says, she got remarried based on testimony that her husband died. Beidus Brewer, and he says she had valid testimony at the time. Now it's true later on, Aim come and contravene. But so what? Hamotzav Chaver Lavaraya. At the time she got remarried, she had good witnesses. Just like at the time the Reuven took hold of the field, he had good witnesses. And therefore for Shimon come later on and bring 2 witnesses to overcome Reuven and get back the field, that's not possible. Because already the possession which Reuven has is valid. Even though that Shimon brought the witnesses to begin with, we were never given the field to Reuven, right? And so to here, although if the Edom had come to begin with and said that the guy did not die, we would never let her remarry. But since at the time she remarried, we only had 2 witnesses who said the guy is dead, so therefore we do let her remarry, right? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi said, baloney. That's if you have to change gears to get baloney. But it's supposed to be, lo mistabra, you are supposed to change gears here, lo mistabra do ella. No, on the contrary, it's shver. Mechal b'shitos in the Rabbanan Tamon. There's a contradiction in the sheet of the rabbis of Bavel. Lo modeh Rabbanan Tamon, don't the rabbis agree? The rabbis will agree over there. Shil mishari shayna. If to begin with, shnayim omri meis. There should be od mitocha. 2 people say Reuven's father had the field this time it's dead. V'shtayim omri lo meis aviv mitocha. 2 people say that Reuven's father did not have the field at the time of death. Shasla de b'chetzka shel Reuven, that the field remains in Reuven's possession. Meaning, if both sets of witnesses come together before anything is done, right? So then Reuven gets to keep the field, right? It's only once the witnesses came, Shimon took it away from Reuven, and then another set of witnesses comes to Reuven's back, so they don't give it back to Reuven. But if both sets of witnesses came before the court case began, so of course Reuven gets to keep it, right? And
they cancel each other.
Right? So here too, the same thing should be true here as well, right? Why do we allow the woman to remain married if both sets of witnesses, one which says that the husband died and the other says the husband didn't die, both came before we opened the case? That's what the rabbis in Bavel say. If both sets of witnesses came before the case began, and she should get married, but if she got married, she doesn't have to get divorced. What kind of thing is that? Of course she should have to get divorced, because we're both sets of witnesses who are already there, and they cancel each other out at the time that the case began. So it says, I'll give you another proof like this. Actually, I think that's the end of the proof. The more doesn't answer it. So? Yeah, the Gemara doesn't answer. The Gemara just continues the question. The Gemara says,
but that's a steer to the Mishnah, isn't it?
Yeah. So it says, let's just finish. Go finish up that thing. So ilu amru shnayim. If 2 people said nisgarsha, right? So you said she was divorced. For shnayim when they said says, and shnayim lo nisgarsha, and 2 people said she wasn't divorced, right? After she got married. And that you said, Lo Teitzi, that she doesn't have to get divorced, then Yos, that would be good. But not the way it's in front of us now. So that we actually leave that difficult. We don't understand how the Rabbanan Tamon said, but the Avid, when she got married, she can stay married. But the truth is, we really answered it on top. I'm not sure what's so difficult, and maybe that's what Yerushalmi doesn't bother answering it now. What we did answer, we said, now like Rabbi Yirmiyah, we said that in a case where they're testifying to death, so she's afraid that the dead guy will come back, and that's why we rely on the witnesses who said he's dead, to her advantage that the evidence, if she got married, she can remain married, as opposed to a case of money, right? We're going back and forth by the money, the field, who it belongs to. So we have no principle of Isha Daiko Mitzvah, right? That a woman is going to be tremble and she's going to make sure to only get married if she really is sure of herself. That simply does not apply in the case of the money, of who's going to get the field, where it's going to keep on going back and forth.
Except the answer we gave on top is when the witnesses came one, and then later on the second.
No, but it would even work, I think, if they both came once. I'm not sure. You're right. I don't know if they both came once. Maybe you're right. Maybe it wouldn't work.
You have two contradicting witnesses at the same time.
Okay, maybe you're right. I take it back. It's not a good. Maybe it's not a good answer. Masisa pli Rabbi Yochanan. Now we're going to ask Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan is the one who says that no matter what, she can't remain married. She got to get divorced. What about the following mission? So Shnaim Ren Yiskacha. Two people say she's married. Shnaim Ren Yiskacha. Two people say she's not married. Lotina say she shouldn't marry somebody else. When they say, but if she marries somebody else, Lotate say she doesn't have to get divorced. So what do we see quite clearly? That we do rely, b'di'evet, and the witnesses, in this case, witnesses said she wasn't married, and she doesn't have to get divorced when she gets married. According to Rabbi Yochanan, that's difficult, because Rabbi Yochanan said, in any case where he said she shouldn't get married, if b'di'evet she does get married, she's got to get divorced. And he would say it's not true. You see a case where b'di'evet she doesn't have to get divorced.
But she's not guilty of any of error here.
What do you mean? She's guilty of Eishasish. She married another guy.
She married
another guy, not the guy who they said she's married to. They married another guy. So, alright, Eishah said we can't salvage it. Pater Rabbi Yochanan will say that we misunderstood the case. It's a case where Shnaim and Yiskach, two people say she was married and divorced. Ushnaim lo Yiskach, two people say she was never divorced. In that case, Lotina say, Vini says, Lotina say. There, even Rabbi Yochanan agrees, she probably should not get married, but if she gets married, she doesn't have to get divorced. Why not? Mabin al-Kadmai, so what's the case? And a case where two says she's divorced and two says she's not divorced, where they say that she can't remain married even if she did get married. Says, well, I'll tell you, very interesting distinction, a good one. We're talking about whether there's a dispute if she was divorced or not. Everybody agrees she was married. Question whether she was divorced. We have to be machmer here. But we don't know that she's an Eishes except because these two people said that she's an Eishes, right? And those two people said Eishes, although the words are missing here, hey, they're the ones who say she got divorced. Right? The two people say that she's married are the ones who said the divorce. What about the other ones? The other ones say the other ones say she never said she was even married. They say she's not divorced, but they didn't know she was married. The women, what happened in this case is two witnesses say she was married and divorced. Two witnesses said she never got divorced. But two witnesses said she never got divorced. For as far as I'm concerned, they don't know that she was married either, right? So in this case, the two people would establish a chazaka that she's married and caused problems. They say she got divorced. The pesha also pesha here, right? They made the problems. They solved the problems. The woman said she's not divorced. Yes, but how do you know she was ever married to begin with, according to them, right? So that's what it says here. So l'sheavo shnaim. If two other people come, v'yomer, and they'll say it should be she's gotcha that she was married, then I'd have a problem. But the two people say she never got divorced. They don't know that she was ever married either. Masisa Piga Rabbi Yochanan. This following verse, I'm sorry, Rabbi Yochanan, says, in this space, two people say woman was taken captive, he tore and she's tore. In other words, she didn't have no hanky-panky went on when she was in captivity. Shari in this space, feet to Meir, she was taken captive, she's Tomei. Lotina says she's not getting married, of course, to a Kohen, we're talking about, because of Chalosh, she's a Chalola. But even he says, Lotina says if she does get married, she doesn't have to get divorced. It's a Kash Rabbi Yochanan, because it's here we see for marriages she should not do. If she did it, she can stay in it. Rabbi Yisrael said, no, there it's different. Now the truth is, what Rabbi Yossi is about to say is unintelligible without the Pnei Moshe. Moshe says, by Shvuya we're more Mekel. It's not the same thing, because the whole reason to prohibit a woman taking the captivity for Kohen is based on a Chumrah. What's the Chumrah? The assumption that she was raped or seduced. But we don't necessarily have to assume that, because she has a chazaka that she was a kshera. So therefore we can be more lenient. And that's what Gemara says, even for Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yossi Achashilu Omrim Tohera Shalom Torah Ve'elom Mitmeya. These say she's torn, these say she's tmame. Kamisha Elomrim Nishbeis Ve'elomrim Lo Nishbeis. It's if these are saying she was taken to captivity and these are saying she's not captivity. In that case we believe her whatever she says. Meaning basically, if we have a dispute 2-on-2 by a woman who's an Eishes, we don't believe her, but a Shino. But by Shvuya, since the whole thing is the Chumrah, we believe whatever she has to say. And of course she'll say she's Tahora, right? Back to the case you mentioned on Amud Aleph. Right? 2 people say she's married, 2 people say she's not married. So what's her status? Rabbi Yerushalmi says it's like forbidden fats. How so? If 2 people come and say, plenty achal chelev. Yanko, he ate forbidden fats. The other 2 say, he didn't eat forbidden fats, he ate permissible fats. Lo achal chelev. Shema maybe Asham Toli Misafek. In that case, doesn't he have to bring an Asham Toli? Right? We don't know whether he had or didn't have the forbidden fats, so he has to bring an Asham Toli. V'acha here too, Yitain get Misafek, he has to give a get. Misafek, because we don't know if he married her or didn't marry her. It's no comparison to Chelev. Shekenafilu Omar Libi no Krani maybe Asham Toli. By chalavim, even if you just have a guilty conscience, even the odds are that you didn't eat chalev, you're allowed to bring an asham toli, as long as there was a possibility that you ate chalev. So there, you bring an asham toli because it can't hurt. But here, maybe you don't have to give a divorce, because there's no such thing as this additional factor of just because you're feeling guilty. So either you have to or you don't have to. It's a very long discussion here in the Tzin Yerushalmi, a very nice discussion, which is totally irrelevant to the Gemara, but except peripherally. He wants to say that from here, it's a proof to the Rambam. The Rambam passes that all speakers are the Rabbana, right? Safik D'Oraisa, D'Oraisa is L'Kula. Rabbana say you have to be Machmir. The Rashba says Safik D'Oraisa is L'Chumra D'Oraisa. Torah says to be Machmir. So one of the kashas the Rambam asks, and the Rashba asks the Rambam is, how can you ever have to bring an Asham Toli? If all Safik speakers are Mutter D'Oraisa, so how is the Torah ever require you to make an Asham Toli? You were allowed to do it. So he answers based on this Gemara, no, but you see, Asham Toli is not based on the fact that you transgressed the Safek. It's based on you're feeling bad. So you can feel bad even if the Torah allowed you to transgress, to take your chance at a Safek. The Torah allowed you to take chances, but after, and you were big Baal Taiva, so you took your chance. But afterwards you feel guilty, so you can bring an Asham Toli, even the Torah permitted it to do so. So anyway, so it's a long discussion of Safek D'Oraisa L'Kula, L'Chumra. Very nice discussion, but not for us for now. Anyway, says the Gemara, Mesisa Pli Rabbi Yossi, Mishnah Bryce itself seems to argue Rabbi Yossi and a Rabbi Yoda. Because so Rabbi Yoda says that a get is necessary. Rabbi Yossi says a get is not necessary. Okay? So the Bryce itself says, Loti no save, even he says Loti say, right? 2 people say she's married, 2 people say she's not married. She can't marry another person. She does marry another person, she doesn't have to get divorced. So that's a contradiction to both. Rabbi Yossi, it seems, she holds you can go get married to anybody you want. We don't, these witnesses cancel each other out, right? Because these people, Rabbi Yossi, say she shouldn't get remarried to somebody else. But according to Rabbi Yossi, should be able to, right? Because it's not like the Chalavim, right? The same applies Rabbi Yoda. On the end of the bright side is Rabbi Yoda. It says, even they say it's lo teitzei. It says lo teitzei, not teitzei. It says if she gets married, she doesn't ever get divorced. According to Rabbi Yoda, she shouldn't be allowed to get married altogether. And if she got married, she's not. She shouldn't be allowed to remain married. She should have to get divorced. Because it's like Asham Toli, right? It's forbidden. Says Rabbi Yossi, Martino say. You misunderstood. Rabbi Yossi doesn't say she should be allowed to get married l'chatchila. When two Eidim say she's married, two Eidim say she's not, it's not have to go marry somebody else l'chatchila. V'lo Rabbi Yerushalmi says Rabbi Yerushalmi doesn't say that if she got married she has to get divorced. No, they had a side to the conversation, totally peripheral to this issue. All Rabbi Yossi was saying is that I could agree with you that she shouldn't get married l'chatchila, but don't think a parallel to Chalev and talk about Asham Toli, because Asham Toli is not, the parameters are not similar. Asham Toli, the parameters are much more lenient. Shafilu Amar Libi No Kreni, maybe Asham Toli. Even if a person's heart makes him feel bad, he can bring an Asham Toli. So it's not necessarily true that just because two witnesses say she's married, two witnesses say she's not married, that that's a comparable case, in any way, shape, or form. Could be that Asham Toli has many more, you bring on many more cases, and there's no comparison between the person who ate a piece of fat, we don't know whether it was kosher or treif, and the person, and whether it brings Asham Toli, and the whether when one said when this is Shez Mekudesh, one said when this is she's not, whether in that case she can get married to somebody else or not, they might be totally dissimilar. There's no comparison between the two. They say to a woman, your son died, and then your husband, so then she becomes Mesiah Bemis, right? She's Mesiah Bemis because she had no kid at the time that her husband died. Then they said, no, well, joke's on you. The opposite was true. She's got to get divorced because her husband is now chayav krisus on her. Her husband is her brother-in-law, right? And it's forbidden because there was no yibum allowed. And again, any kid she has by the yavam, before or after she hears the news, they're all mamzer. Okay, as it says more now, this Gemara is totally irrelevant to the Mishnah. Totally out of left field. What if there's a woman who's not supposed to marry out? She really should do yibum, right? This happens a lot in modern day America, unfortunately. You have women who undergo you're supposed to undergo yibum, but they don't know. They die after after childless marriage. They should undergo yibum, but they don't know, and they go and they marry somebody else, right? So. She should have been Mesiah Bemis, right? And she was not. The Noam Yerushalmi, the Achiezer, a whole bunch of Achronim go a little bit crazy here. No, them not literally, but this is talking about whether this argues in the Bavli, because the case in Bavli where she got Mekudeshes, it's talking about to the market. What's her status? And here it says she got Nesua to the market. So the question is, are they two different cases or the same case? Pasha says they're two separate cases. The Bali talks about just where she got Mekudeshes, and that's separate from the Bali Yerushalmi, which is talking about where she got Nesua. Okay? But anyway, without getting further into the comparison, so she mamish went the whole 10 yards. She got married to somebody else with Achalitza. Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar Nishkeferlach, Zeh Choyletz V'Zeh Mekayim. She gets a pro forma Chalitza now, right? And she can remain with her husband. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, she's got to get divorced. Why? Because she got married to Isser, and therefore we fine her and we make her get divorced. She's got to get divorced from her current husband. Rabbi Yirmiyah, that's how we pass him. Rabbi Yossi B'Shem also said Teitze. Rabbi Yossi B'Shem Rabbi Pinchas Hechsava Rabbi. What does Rabbi hold? Amar Lei. So Rabbi Pinchas said Rabbi Yirmiyah that she doesn't have to get divorced. She gets chalitza and she remains married. Amar Lei. So he said Rabbi Pinchas said to her. Rabbi said to Rabbi Pinchas, Chazor b'cha, renege on what you said. Okay, if you don't, I'm going to write that you're a rebellious elder, because Rabbi Paskin that she's got to get divorced from her husband. Very strong language. So Rabbi Zira said, Masnisa Messiah Rabbi Yechanan. Our Mishnah, this brisa sustains Rabbi Yechanan. Which brisa? It says Teitze Mizeh Mizeh. It's a brisa which says that in a case where she was married out and she wasn't supposed to marry out because she was a Yavama, she's got to leave both husbands, both the Yavam and the husband who married her, right? And according to our mayor who said the name of Rabbi Akiva is Rebbe, we throw the whole book at her, and all the prohibitions which apply to Nation Sisha and properly married out apply to Yevama and properly married out. The only difference is, Chachamim says no mamzer by Yevama. We do pass in that way. There's no mamzer because a Yevama lashuk is only a lav. So like Rabbi Akiva, the progeny is a mamzer. But like Rabbanu say, it's only mamzer if it's a death penalty crime. There's no mamzer Yevamas. Lo amar ein mamzer Yevam, but the only the machlok is where there's mamzer by the Yevam or not. But to get divorced, it's got to get divorced. V'atzina, we learn talking about so teitzei as well. But Rabbi Yochanan teitzei, just Rabbi Yochanan says it got to get divorced. If they said to a woman, your husband died, Vinises, and she got married, then they say, no. At the time we told you he was dead, he was still alive. Umeis, but then he died afterwards. So a Vlad Rishon, in this case of distinction, a kid who's conceived while her husband turns out to have been alive is of course a mamzer. But a kid is conceived after her husband is known to be dead, ain't a mamzer, it's not a mamzer. They said to a woman, your husband's dead, V'skach, and she only got kiddushin, not nisuin, right? Only one, not the other. And then her husband comes back, she can come back, go back to him. In this case, even if the second husband gave her a get, she can still go back to the first husband. We don't call the marasayin in this case. Why? Because lo pasam in hakuna, and it doesn't make her apostle to the to kahuna either. Why? Ze midrash dosh Rabbi Lezer ben Masya, because Lezer Masya Dash concerning this case, isha grusha me isha, who was divorced from her husband. Lo me isha no isha, not from a man who's not her husband. Now it's true the second husband was mekadisher, but that's not enough for Chachamim to find her and throw the book at her like they did in the first mission. The first mission they threw the book at her because she went the whole 10 yards. She had nisuit. And that's why she needs to divorce from the second guy, and she can't go back to the first guy. But here she only got kiddusha from the second guy. She didn't go all the way. So then we don't throw the book at her and she can go back to her first time.
So it's like a get me to Rabbana.
Yeah. Right. Rabbi Yochanan Sheriah said, Ein lo ella mishum ziyum kuna. In this case, our Mishnah, where she got kiddushin to the second guy and then got a divorce from him. So it's only disgusting to kahuna. They hold their nose. Literally, it smells bad. But they ain't based in Mizayim, but Basin allows them to marry Kohanim. The Kohanim, their noses are stuck up. They won't marry her because it looks bad, but she's okay technically. Says Maramat Makayim, what are we talking about here? Beid Echor B'Shnei, top of Nun Zayin Mouth. Beid Echor B'Shnei. Are we talking about whether there's one witness or two witnesses? If you're going to say there's one witness, we see one aide can say the husband's dead and she becomes Muteris L'Yisyaben. So I'm not sure why that's a big deal, but somehow the Gemara feels it's a big deal. If you say it's only where there are two witnesses that her husband's dead, have a pliga Rav that argues that Rav, the Rav Nachman, B'Shem Rabbi Yaakov, B'Shem Rav. This is how B'Shnayim. If she's married on the basis of two witnesses, Afilu Duwasi. Amazing thing. Even if the husband goes back and says, I'm here, right? It should be Armei the Carbonate Ibn Moshe. The Shai read Baz Shai there's it's all fixed the next line. They say, Armei Lay, we say to him, Lay Satu. You're not who you said you are. Ve'ema Kirach, and I don't recognize you. So it's an interesting thing. If two people come and say the husband's dead, two people say the husband is dead, right? And then he comes back. So then she has the right to say, I don't recognize you. Of course, if she doesn't say it, she's in big trouble. And that's our first mission. But if she says, I recognize you, she's okay. So therefore, if you're going to say two people came and said that he's dead, right? So then why should she not remain with the Yava? Or whoever she got married to, right? It's not a Yava mirror. Whoever she got married to, she remain with, right? Because she can deny knowing that this is the guy. So in any event, this is a good question. The Gemara does not answer it. And basically the only time she's up the creek, like the first Mishnah, is if she confesses that this is her husband. If she's smart, she'll just say, I don't know who you are, go away. Okay? How do we know that the marriage does not take hold of a woman who's already married? It's a very basic question. It's kind of strange for it to come up in the middle of Yevamos out of nowhere, as if we never knew this before. But how do we know he can't contract a double marriage? No polygamy in halacha, not polygamy, no polyandry in halacha. How do we know that's true? Because Rabbi Yana said, she's got to go out. She takes me beso. When she leaves one house, then she can marry somebody else. But can't marry to two people at the same time. I know Kedusha doesn't take effect by any erva, right? Your sister, right? Your daughter, your daughter-in-law. Right? She goes out of his house and is to another man. Now the emphasis here is on the acher. Matam lomer acher. Proud the parshas Arayos. You can't be married to somebody who's not related to. If somebody's related to, you can't be married to. It's not an ish acher, right? Okay. Another cool case, weird case. His wife turned tables. Till now we talk about her husband goes to Chutz La'aretz. Now the wife goes to Chutz La'aretz. Right? She turns up with a green card in America. Anyway, they came and they said to her, Mesa Yishlecha. Your wife died. Oh, he's so happy. Nasa Chose marries her sister. Okay? Now his wife comes back. Now he's married to two sisters. That's also right. So Muteres Lachser Lo. She can go back to him. Not the other way around, right? If he had gone to Chutz La'aretz and then come back, so everybody's stuck, right? But since she went to Chutz La'aretz, so she can go back. The second marriage is null and void. Therefore he can marry the relatives of his second wife, whose marriage is null and void. And his second wife can marry his relatives, because their marriage is null and void. If the first wife dies in Chutz La'aretz, he's allowed to remain married to the second one. They said, now this is a very strong, I brought the Nachlas Tzvi, but let's see if we can get it along without it. They said to the guy, your wife died. And, well, actually we're not up to the strange case yet. He married the sister, and then they said, no, so she was alive at that time, Mesa, and then she died. Havlad Rishon, so the child he has, while his first wife is still alive, conceives of the second wife as a mamzer, because she was also to him at that time, because she was a sister-in-law, right? But the child conceived after his wife actually did die, ain't a mamzer, is not a mamzer. Rabbi Yossi says, and the Gemara is going to discuss what he means like this, what he's going even on this mission, the first mission of the parent. If he causes anybody else to be apostle, he causes himself to be apostle. It doesn't cause anybody else to be apostle. It doesn't cause himself to be apostle either. And again, the Gemara is going to discuss what is going on. Okay, now comes a weird case. He said your wife died. He married his sister. Me'avia, a half-sister. It's only a sister from the father's side, right? Mesa, right? Then they said the second one died. Now he married a half-sister of the second one. But now number 3 is not related to number what? Number 1. Number 3 is related to number 2, but not to number 1, right? Mesa, Vanessa Chosa Me'avia. Now he married number 4, right? And number 4 is a half-sister to number 3, right? Mesa, then she dies, right? Vanessa Chosa Me'ima, then he marries a half-sister, that's number 5, right? And then they all come back. What a nightmare, right? All 5 of these women come back, and each one's a half-sister to the one before, right? So Mutar B'Rishay is allowed to be married to the first one, but Shlish is Chamishis, 1, 3, and 5 are all Mutar to him, right? Because 1 is not related to 3, and 3 is not related to 5, right? But Shniya Upotos are saying, and if he dies, and one of them has relations with a Yavam, so, or does Chalitza the Yavam, so all the 3 and 5 are the other 2 of those wives are Potter. But Aser B'Shniya V'Shlurvis, but the second and fourth one are forbidden to him, because they are the later sisters. If he dies and the Yavam has relations with the second or fourth, so it does nothing for the other wives. If he had relations with the second one after the first one died, then the opposite is true. He's allowed to remain the second and fourth one, who Potter so saying, and they exempt their Taurus because they're really married. But also is forbidden the fifth one. So Taurus, neither of them exempts the other one. You got the picture, right? Okay. So whatever ones are related to each other are forbidden. Whatever ones are unrelated are permissible. Now, how do we learn our Mishnah? How come he remains mutter to the first wife, even though the second wife is also? God says, Shachav Isho Sa. If a man has forbidden relations with her. Shchiva Sa O Sarta, if you have forbidden relations with a woman, but if it ain't Shchiva, it answers her, but I can't answer the first sister if I have relations which are forbidden with the second sister, right? It doesn't bounce back and answer the first sister. Now, the Gemara asks an interesting question. Yerushalmi says the Gemara doesn't really mean to ask what it asks; it really means to ask something else. I understand. So why in the first Mishnah do we answer the wife on both of them and say she's got to get divorced from both? Let's say they're also it's a nebuch, right? She's exempt. It says if you do, we're mizane on your husband, not if you're honest, and she was unintentional, right? So what the Yerushalmi says, that's not a question, because we said before, it's taka knas the rabbanon, right? The knas rabbanon, so she should make sure that be meticulous before she gets married. So the question doesn't start. So Yerushalmi said, really what the Gemara means to ask is, why don't we make such a gzeira over here? That he should make sure his wife is dead before marrying the sister. That's really what the Gemara means to ask. The other way around. The Gemara means to ask, why don't we make such a gzeira over here? So I'm telling you a very interesting answer. I don't remember this from the Bavli. I don't think it's in the Bavli. Maybe I'm wrong. They made a gzeira which is prevalent. Men go to chutzlar. The Gemara actually says, now so it's not prevalent. Men go to chutzlaritz. So that case, nebuch of a husband disappearing can happen very frequently. So then they made a gzeira to make sure that she'll make sure to figure out what's going on. Ain't darker shalisha, let's say somebody is saying. Look how many men with green cards there are and how many women with green cards there are, right? So therefore, since women don't go to chutzor as often, therefore they didn't make such a gzeira by women to be machmir to make sure that she's dead.
Nowadays the Yoatzot are going to go to chutzor.
Right. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda. Right? It said, Moed Beisham Vesil V'Val Chamoso Shepasal Tishto. Beisham and Vesil both concede if you have relations with your mother-in-law, you can't remain married to your wife either. So you lose both of them. Aman Echluku, what's in Machlokas? Bebal Achusisha, if you have relations with your wife's sister. Shebeshamrim Pasal, you lose both of them. Beisham Lo Pasal, you don't lose both of them. You only lose the sister, not your wife. Chabrayim Shem Yochanan said, time of the Rabbi Yehuda, what's the logic of Rabbi Yehuda? Ba'eshi Tzefuo Soves Het. It says, in the fire burned the guy and his mother-in-law and his wife. Burn all three. It says, well, you can't say it. Manakayami. Iliad Sreif, do service alachas, you can only burn the second one, not the first one. One more minute. 1 minute. You can only burn one of them, not two of them. The first one is not at fault. It's the second one who's at fault, right? If you have your mother-in-law and then the daughter, your wife, so whoever was the second one is the one which creates the issa, right? Actually, it's the mother-in-law because she already was your wife. So it must be telling us that they're both usher. Not that one of them is both are burned, both of them are usher. But that Akidum Rabbi Akiva. That makes sense for Rabbi Akiva, who doesn't dash in his hand for something else. But what about Rabbi Shmuel? Well, how you learn it? Tiny Rabbi Shmuel, because Rabbi Shmuel says, Beishi Sefu Oto Ves Hen is teach us who Ves Shnia. Now, he learns it out as that you too burn both. I don't remember what he says. I'm too nervous to remember what he says. Too nervous about the wife. We'll come back to this tomorrow. Okay. I draw a blank when I get tense at the end. We got far enough.
2 blot. How many blot are we behind?
Less than 30.
What's the
That's good.